Hey folks, Dr. Brian King here. I just got off the road. I was on tour for about a month up through the Dakotas and all kinds of parts of the United States that most of us have probably never heard of. There is an interview that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's a little bit different than what I would usually do. This person is like I don't know, he is like a musician, I think, a writer. You know, he became well known through the pandemic when we started producing these videos. I've never had an opportunity to meet him in person, as he's also kind of far away from where I currently am, and a little bit inconvenient to travel to, like the tour I just got off of, actually. But I figured the best way to do it was to get to him online as somebody who produces content for the internet. And so I figured, well, this will be one of my very rare internet-based interviews with a very interesting and funny individual whose work I really admire and enjoy. Folks, I bring you Dr. Jordan Breeding, everybody.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Booze, women, and booze. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere.
Thanks for having me. This is fun. I've never actually been interviewed or really talked to an actual doctor. So now I feel like every podcast I've been on is just some other goober. So it's okay for me to call myself doctor. This is the first one.
There you go. Well, you know, as doctors, we're also goobers, or at least some of us anyway.
I suppose that's true.
I don't present as a doctor. In fact, I'll be honest with you. My fans know this, but I'll tell you, I only started using my title when I started performing stand-up comedy. Before that, I just went by Brian. I needed something to separate me from the other performers, you know, the other people that were on stage, and say, hey, I'm that doctor comedian. It just kind of worked, you know.
I mean, I'm doing the same thing, but I didn't even earn it. I just chose it. So
fair enough. Hey, you know what? Dr. Dre has made a long career with, you know, and I don't think he worked for that, you know. So how are you, man?
I'm good. You know, we just had our third kid a few months ago. So there's been a lot of transition in life recently, but things are looking good.
First of all, congratulations. New dad, you know.
Yeah.
One dad to another. We got Dad's Day coming up next month.
We do.
You started being noticed because you revitalized the YouTube channel for a very popular comedy website. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So in 2016, to back all the way up, I started submitting unsolicited articles to crack.com, which is the website that you're referring to and the channel that you're referring to. And I really, really enjoyed it. They used to have a workshop where anybody could submit. I got really into it. I think I've written probably about 150 articles for them at this point. But I started doing that. End of 2017, their entire video team got laid off. And I'd actually traveled to Los Angeles in summer 2017 to try and meet everybody because I was trying to get a job there. But everybody got laid off. Yeah, it didn't work out. Well, I continued to freelance write for them, just pure articles, stuff like that. 2018, 2019. At the end of 2019, they got sold to a new parent company. And I kind of just had the idea that I bet the new parent company will want to reboot that YouTube channel or do something with the YouTube channel because it was big. It had, you know, a little over 2 million subscribers at the time and all that stuff. And so I, on a whim, decided to shoot an episode of a show in my basement with a couple buddies. And the idea was just to show off my writing, to say, hey, whenever you reboot this show, let me write for you guys. And then it just so happened that I pitched it day one of quarantine, at least for us, during the pandemic. So that was March 16th, 2020. And I pitched it to a guy named Syriac Lamar, who was the managing editor of Cracked at the time, and he liked it a lot. Sent it to the editor-in-chief of the parent company. He liked it a lot. And that afternoon, I was talking to them about rates and stuff. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And so I just, they asked for the pilot plus 9 more episodes. So I did that. And then they asked for 10 more. And then they asked me to be full-time. So I did that from full-time from August 2020 to February. And then I started my own channel, which we're doing now. And it's growing much more quickly than I was expecting.
So your videos were one of these welcome distractions pandemic, you know, like so I sat out at least the beginning of the pandemic in a rental that I got because we had to, you know, our road gigs were canceled and we had to go find a place to hang out for a little while. And I just remember loading up YouTube one day, and all of a sudden, this content from Cracked. What's that about? You know, because I was a fan of those previous video makers. They did a lot of interesting stuff, and then, you know, some really funny, really insightful things in the entertainment industry. And then all of a sudden, there's this dude in a lab coat who's obviously in his basement with images of the brain and stuff, you know, and I was like, oh wow, this is fantastic, and I was so I really enjoyed what you did, but not just your content. I was just really incredibly just grateful that you like revitalized this dormant channel, you know.
The show where I diagnose movie problems to distract from my personal issues, and the only show on Cracked.
And you know, those of us who don't really pay attention to you know, what happens with these companies and whatever, we're more the consumers of the content as opposed to you know, I didn't really know anything about buyouts or, you know, like layoffs and things like that. And all of a sudden they're just like, oh, they're not making videos anymore. Oh, that kind of stinks. And all of a sudden here pops this Jordan guy in the middle of the pandemic. You know, life is terrible. You know, we're you know, I'm canceled. My gigs are canceled. I had a book actually that was just released prior to the pandemic, which kind of fizzled because all my TV appearances, things like that, those were all canceled. And then here I am in a little, you know, cooped up in a little condo, and Jordan's you know, pretending to be a doctor talking about movies. So,
yeah.
So I think that's awesome. Like what you did is fantastic, and I'm not the only person, of course, that found at least some you know, the escape from the pandemic through your videos, you know. And then of course you helped to revitalize other content creators on that platform. You know, I think there's other like I don't know. Did you have something to do with bringing back Roger, or was that
Yeah, I did. So you know, there are a few top series at Cracked, obviously prior to my time. After Hours is probably the biggest one. And though I had talked to Michael Swaim, he's great. He's had me on his podcast multiple times. And, you know, I've gotten dinner with Daniel O'Brien when I was in New York, one of the times I was there. All great dudes. But like, none of them are particularly interested. Like, you know, we weren't going to reboot it without them. I wasn't going to convince them to come back. But Honest Ads, I sort of felt like I just wondered what he was doing now. This is Jack Hunter, the actor behind Honest Ads. And so what I did was I just did some Google foo, and I you know, searched his name a lot, and I found an article in the like Buffalo Ledger or some newspaper there, and I contacted the author, or you know, the journalist who did an interview with him, and got his email and emailed him, and anyway, brought him back in. He was super excited to do it.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Get out of here, you earth-hating, carbon-farting, unrecyclable garbage person.
We had pretty strict restrictions on set. I mean, we didn't have a budget for anything more than a really, really small crew anyway. And so what we did was we all took tests. Well, we all got vaccinated. We all took tests night before and day of, just kind of rapid tests. And then everybody that wasn't out there was wearing masks the whole time. And, you know, we were outside anytime we weren't doing anything. Actual production wise.
What happened? What happened at Crack, man? How come you're not there anymore?
Just a couple of different things. I mean, the short version is that for various reasons, a lot of the people that brought me on are no longer working there. It's kind of a thing that I mentioned in my sort of goodbye video. So, you know, the CEO, the editor-in-chief, and the managing editor, who all brought me on board, no longer work for the parent company. And they've brought in some new people, and they have some new ideas. And we just sort of got to a point where I think we felt differently about the best way to move forward, or what the content could look like and how to grow it and all that stuff. So, yeah, just sort of parted, I suppose.
This wasn't just like a massive, we're going to eliminate video like that, like the other company did or anything like that.
The parent company didn't even have any video whatsoever when I was hired. I sort of started, it wasn't just like revitalizing Cracked. I was sort of technically trying to help create a video department in general across. So this company also owns E-Bombs World, Know Your Meme, Cheeseburger, a bunch of other brands. So, and I, they are trying to look at it a little more holistically. Like, how do we bring all these brands up and all this stuff? And, yeah, I kind of just like Cracked,
I'm familiar with those other, I'm familiar with those other brands, but it's like, cause they're all previously tied to websites that started early in the, I'm familiar with that stuff, but I like Cracked. Just Cracked as even though what Cracked currently is now is not at all connected to where it came from, but it used to be like this great magazine that I read when I was a kid, and and like I just there's a lot of history there, and it's just a good name, But I love what you did with it. I love that you brought it out. I love watching your content, and I would look forward to, oh, hey, it's another Dr. Jordan video, and probably watch it once or twice. How did you get into comedy writing, first of all?
It was an accident, sort of. I mean, the basic gist is I was doing music stuff, and I thought our band was going to do more music stuff, but they didn't with me. So a few years before this 2016 thing, I had a job at an architecture firm of where I was no value because I'm an English major. And I spent all day, every day reading Cracked. I don't know how I found it, but I loved Cracked. So I just read, the
website, right? Or the
website. And I watched some videos too. I did like the videos. I watched them more, not at that job. It's harder to watch videos at a job. And I loved it, loved everything about it. So when I quit my job to pursue music and quickly realized nobody else was quitting their job to pursue music, I remembered that Cracked took unsolicited articles through that workshop thing. And so I pitched a Star Wars thing because I read a bunch of Star Wars books as a kid, and they accepted it, and I wrote it up, and I had so much freaking fun doing it. And then when it got published, I noticed they changed 80% of what I wrote, basically.
Oh, huh?
And so what I did was what I started doing was printing out what was finished and printing out what I had written, and kind of like, why did they just? And so I did that, for hundreds of articles. So by the end, they changed almost nothing at all. So I just sort of, they were paying more for the idea than for the execution initially. Like, they had a lot of people there that could execute, that were good writers. And so they were able to cover up my mediocre comedy. Like, I still got the byline, and I used that to get an internship at Paste Magazine, where I wrote another like 450 articles for them. And then got, into Ranker and Modern Rogue and a bunch of these other sites. And so it was really just learning as I went, and being fortunate enough to look good the whole time from the beginning, because there were really good editors shaping my content. And then by just comparing what they were publishing versus what I was writing, I was able to get hopefully better and better and better. And so by the time I was actually doing Your Brain on Cracked episodes, I don't know. I just have a good sense of at least what the Cracked voice was, or what I thought the Cracked voice was, or what it used to be, or whatever. And so even now, so one of the main things I do now is I'll watch an entire series, like an entire film series. So we just did all the Friday the 13th movies, and the video is 3 hours long. It's insane. And so just the sheer volume of jokes is overwhelming at times, but it's been helpful to have spent so much time practicing. And then, like we were saying offline, if a joke sucks, you just cut it, or you leave it in and you make fun of it. You can, I think one of the nice things about video is that the editor can make fun of the performer or the writer, and there can be editor's notes that point out how bad the joke is, or you can have the music change to reference how much it sucks. Or honestly, even in this last one, what I did was I had a joke that felt too I don't know, too spicy, basically. And so I just filmed myself doubting the joke while editing. And a lot of people said they really liked it.
Yeah. It's taking it out of the moment. Yeah. I do that on stage. This is something a lot of comedians, I don't know how comfortable they are when a joke bombs, but when I bomb a joke, I almost immediately react with the crowd and make fun of my stupid joke. You know, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking with that? You know, and that is a performance skill that you develop over years. You know, so much in the same way that you developed your voice through the written work. You know. So have you ever performed? Have you ever tried to make people laugh in a live setting?
Just interpersonally, yes. I started doing improv about a year ago. So I've done some of that, and I have really enjoyed it, but it's obviously very low stakes. We've done some performances, but it's like for everybody's friends or whatever. That's the thing too. I didn't set out to perform anything. I didn't expect to be the face of it. I just acted in the pilot episode because I wrote it, so I just figured I would know how to do the jokes, especially because it was pandemic and like nobody else could be around anyway. You know, so that's the other thing too, is I've sort of honed what I can do as a performer over time as well, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I haven't done a ton of live stuff, just improv. I can do a lot of voices and accents, and so that makes that easier than stand-up. Seems stressful to me.
It's terrible. It's the worst. I don't know why I do it so much.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of live music, so I'm very comfortable performing in front of people live, but I don't have as intuitive a sense of like what my stand-up routine would be.
I would imagine it probably wouldn't be talking about movies. I don't know. It's just something, you know, unless you're doing like a very specific, you know, audience who knows you from the YouTube. And of course, you know, that's more like this is my TED Talk with joke, you know?
Yeah, right.
Something like that. Now, and your new channel, I haven't seen a tremendous amount of different content. I've seen a lot of the videos that you were just describing, these long ones. You talk about an entire film series. And I got it as somebody who not only films video but also edits video. I couldn't imagine what a monster it is to edit like a 3-hour. Like, it's not you streaming. Like, it's literally there are cuts, there are edits, and it's really entertaining for something so incredibly long. You know, the attention span of content these days doesn't go beyond a TikTok. So I think I've watched probably about an hour of it so far. What's impressive to me, it isn't just like, hey, you know, and then the murderer does this and the murderer does that and so forth. But it's like it is a blow by blow recount of the entire series. But then there's like jokes and there's cutaways, and I love it. It's a great. It's a great form of content. And how did that evolve?
Yeah, so you know, it's like, it's with anything, I think you start to learn what your sensibilities are when it comes to creation of any sort of art or performance or anything. And I've realized that I think my tendencies are my preferences are actually leaning more and more and more towards maximalism. So I used to think as a kid that I love nuance and stuff like that. And I do to some degree, but I think the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once is kind of this pinnacle of everything I've ever wanted from movies and creation in general, because it is so overwhelming in the way that it is. I mean, obviously, it also hits a lot of niches. I love martial arts films. I love sci-fi films. I love comedy. I love all this stuff. But I think what the Daniels created with that movie is just so great. And then as far as the specific series, I don't know. It really just, I think it's just a way to. So okay, let me put it this way. I think that a huge strength of what I was creating for Cracked is that the majority of the content you can always fall back on some sort of analysis. So the idea of having analysis and comedy working in tandem means that each one gets more wiggle room or more forgiveness, leeway, something, because they're always working together. So if a joke doesn't land, or even if it's not that it doesn't land, but a joke isn't gut-bustingly funny, well, at least you're still kind of analyzing something kind of interesting. And by the same token, if this is getting boring or not that interesting because you're only talking about, you know, some very specific movie or something, well, at least it's pretty funny. And you can kind of live in this tension. And so this idea, I have seen so many different types of YouTube content where absolutely brilliant. So like the best example might be Every Frame a Painting. There'll be these people that do these video essays discussing editing or discussing comedy and how films are put together, but it's not funny at all. Or there will be obviously just like sketches and stuff like that, just like funny things on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I really, really like the idea of you can watch this 3-hour video that I've made and maybe you don't learn anything at all. Because it's just, it lives in this weird tension. There's also a ton of recap channels and stuff like that. But I'm hoping that I live in this weird space where it's like, a lot of people have said that they can use my stuff to fall asleep to, which you think would be crazy because it's so high strung, generally speaking. But I do think it keeps a consistent tone, and I think that's like, it's sort of like a white noise machine.
Yeah, it's like comforting in the background. Yeah.
So
and,
I think
if people sleep with their YouTube on, you know, you get all those watch hours as they're falling asleep. So that's
I know
it works in your favor.
I just think it's really interesting, and the difficulty is really appealing to me. Like making these things that are so hard to make is really, it's a really fun challenge for me. And I don't know. It just sort of fell into it because I'm always looking for like, what's the hardest thing I can do? I always try and make things too difficult.
Were you hesitant to do such long format?
I just needed a good angle for it, or an angle that I thought was fun.
Yeah. Because I think with me, like I'm always conscious of how long people will watch something or listen to something.
Yeah, I think so. YouTube, I do think actually rewards longer content at this point. You won't necessarily have as many views in the long run, or definitely not at any spiky point. But the cool thing about a lot of these videos is they'll just sort of float in the algorithm forever, and they'll never fully die off because YouTube is so interested in, wow, I can't believe people watched your video for an hour and a half. Like that's crazy, like on average. And so for me, as somebody who ultimately wants to build something, I'm not super interested in making hit viral stuff that explodes. I'm more interested in building a catalog of things that I'm proud of that can make slow, positive, residual stuff from people that are excited about it over time, rather than like, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard of this language, but it's the talk of sort of like content wells. So you'll have or a content funnel basically. And so at the top of the funnel is your broadest, most, I don't know, it's Gangnam Style or whatever, where it's like, it's something that everybody's excited about and 1 billion people will watch it, but because it's so shallow, they'll wash back out and they'll never come back. I've never heard another song by Psy. I've never cared to look it up. So it's like, that was fun, but there's nothing in there that makes me want to come back necessarily. And then, you know, it just continues. You make weirder, more niche stuff that fewer people can get into, but if they get into it, they're stuck longer.
Right.
I, for better or worse, tend to make stuff right at the bottom. So not a lot of people are getting to it right away, but the people that get there are really excited about it because I think, you know, sort of the audacity of it is interesting to people. Like why not make 12 videos, one for each Friday? That's a more standard, and then you eat them in 10-minute chunks and whatever. I don't know. I even title them intentionally SEO unfriendly so that people don't accidentally stumble in when they're if you want an answer to what happens to Jason, my video is actually not great for that. You'll sort of get a sense of it, maybe. But there are so many great articles and videos from other creators that are like, here's the timeline. Let me just explain it to you chronologically or whatever.
And that's it. Yeah, now you can go watch the next one and be up to speed.
And I think people that stumble upon it thinking that they're going to get a recap, a pure recap, get pissed because, to your point, there's so many jokes and cutaways. It's just there's all this extra crap. All I want to know is what happened to Jason.
Right.
But for people that just kind of want a weird experience, I think they can find that, and then they're like, I would like another play.
Nah, that's definitely the value. They're very entertaining. Like I said, you've done a few of them so far.
Hopefully.
Are there any series that you have planned to do in the upcoming future?
Yeah, so working on Transformers right now, all the live action Transformers, the Michael Bay ones. That's coming up, and then Indiana Jones, hopefully right after that. And then we're doing a Patreon vote. So whoever's on Patreon will vote for whatever I'm going to do for that, like August, September. And then I'm hoping to do Halloween, Paranormal Activity, and Die Hard. And then we'll be at 2024, and we'll see if the channel and I still exist. And then we're hoping to do 2 other series. So I've already released 1 episode that's closer to your Brain on Crack style stuff. I don't know if you saw this. The one about the bureaucracies in kids movies. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah.
So hoping to do a couple. I've got one of those I'm editing, and then I have a 3rd series that I'm working on that's hopefully like big top of funnel. That one is a little bit closer to just hopefully people get the premise right away and they'll think it's fun. And if they don't, it won't be nearly as hard. It won't take 3 hours of your life to watch the whole thing. So
how much time out of your life went into creating that 3 hours of content?
So the filming is easily the easiest part. We only film it in 1 take. I mean, if I stumble over my words, I'll refilm it. But like, there's no that. So if I mispronounce a word, I've mispronounced.
That was like a single. That was a single day. That was a single day. You're just standing there running through the entirety of the series.
Yeah, so Friday the 13th was broken up into 2 days only because it rained at the end of the day. And so we had to stop for a long time. So we filmed the back quarter at Dave's house on another, like we tacked it onto another shoot that we were doing for another channel. But yeah, so like Sharknado and Scream and Marvel are all pretty much 1 day. And honestly, once everything's set up, it doesn't take more than 4 to 6 hours, maybe. I talk pretty fast, and I've read a lot of teleprompter at this point, so I'm pretty good at that. The things that take time are like, okay, like in that one, we were running through the woods, so we had to set up a new shot for every movie, which took forever, just like running around. And the crew is just me and Dave, so it's it's a lot of effort sometimes between the 2 of us.
Right.
But never more than a day, really, unless we intentionally decide to shoot in a second location for whatever reason. But the editing, so I have a bunch of buddies that I've been paying and trying to give them raises as the channel starts to make a little bit of money. I would say that the editing for this video took, I mean, minimum 100 hours. I bet closer to 200 when it's all said and done. And obviously that doesn't include how much time it took to write, how much time it took to just freaking watch them. So these projects there's a lot.
Is the writing all you?
It is. I have a buddy named Cesare who I've thrown a little bit of money at to just run through and write some jokes or observations. But I would say that it's still 98% me.
It takes me 3 months to write a book. I've written 4 now, and it takes me 3 months to write. That's first draft, and then the edit, the publisher and the editors come in, and I mean, who knows? After my 3 months, I think they tack on like another 6 months of rounds of edits. It's just it's a grueling process, and my jokes aren't even. My books aren't even as joke dense as your scripts. I'm like, that's you just hit bang, 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 bang. It's it's pretty impressive achievement. It really is.
Well, thank you. I mean, we do get, again, we get to rely on, if I don't know what the heck to say, I'll just keep explaining the movie. And if I don't have a joke, well, in the edit, now there's a joke. And, you know, so we get, the writing is, I mostly write it all in one take too. I don't do a ton of editing on it just because I can't feasibly. So like the Friday the 13th script is 32,000 words. I just can't spend a ton of time rewriting and tweaking and perfecting. At this point, I just have faith that we could find it in the edit, or you know, obviously some of the things between Dave and myself are just spur of the moment. We're talking about it and having fun. So there's some improvisational stuff. You know, it's a miracle that anybody finds it interesting at all, because even though it is a ton of work, it's still pretty fly by the seat of our pants.
Yeah. And so I think that comes across, and a little bit of that is, I think, for me as an audience member, is part of the charm. You know,
that's my hope.
I mean, yeah, it really does. It's like, you know, it's to use a stand-up analogy. So a lot of times when I'm performing comedy, if something happens in that particular venue, that particular show, like, and it leads to like a good laugh or like a good, you know, experience, that's our experience. That's intimate, you know, like that's no other audience is going to share that. So it makes the audience feel like the show is even more special. You know, it's like, you know, there's this one person in the room who did this or that, and this just tied in together. And when you have those moments in your video, I think that, to me, that kind of creates like a video version of that special feeling that, I'm part of this, you know, like as a participant, you know, even though it's not, of course, it just it feels that way because it's got that organic flow to it, as opposed to, you know, just I'm watching something heavily scripted and heavily edited, and that's, you know, it's very polished, and there's definitely a market for that too. But I love those interjections. You know, I love those interjections because it's your person, you know, shines through your character, you know.
Sure.
And so that's one of the things that makes you very endearing as someone to watch.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think, yeah, I love blurring those lines. There's a whole, so speaking of Cesare, for whatever reason, he got on a kick of in this Transformer script, which is basically done, something about being married to a toaster, and I don't know why he thought that was so funny, but I thought it was pretty funny too. So I'm letting him throw all of his weird toaster wife jokes. But I also am actually married, and I actually talk about my kids. And so it's like, I'm like reading back over the script. I'm like, this is so confusing. I mean, obviously nobody thinks I'm married to a toaster, but there's something funny where I'm with no clear delineation able to talk about my actual wife and my toaster wife. And I just am trusting that people either get it or they're willing to take a minute to, I don't know. And so I think, I don't know. I just think it's fun. That's all it is. I'm trying to keep myself entertained, and I've done it enough that if I think it's funny, and enough other people think it's funny, that I can make another one or something. But it's hard to say. I feel like the thing that I always say to Dave is, I think we're always trying to ride this balance of, we're putting in a ton of effort to make it look like we don't put any effort in, but then also using that to cover up the fact that we also don't have any money. So like trying to make it look like we're intentionally shitty, but also understanding that we are shit. Like it's just me and Dave.
We're just shitty. It's the limitations of the art. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to like work on this level of like, because I think, you know, there are people that make endearingly bad things because that's all they can do. I mean, because that is what it is. We're trying to make it look like, I don't know. It's this weird constant juggling of, we're trying much harder. It's sort of like, have you seen any of the $20 movies that we did with
a couple of those? Yeah.
So those guys are friends. So I brought them in too. So those are friends of mine from college and stuff. And I was always saying to them, I was like, I think what makes these the most fun ones, the ones that tend to succeed, are the ones where the camera work and the editing are actually very impressive, but you just so happen to be wearing like a plastic bag on your head. And so it's like, it's you want people to think that every choice you've made is intentional, even if it's a shitty looking choice.
Yeah.
And so my goal is always to do that, even if sometimes I didn't actually have that choice because we're broke and we're in the woods and Dave's camera fell over, so our tripod is a little.
Yeah.
So that's the juggling act for us. Is I want everything to look like it was a choice, even if it looks bad, and even if we didn't actually have a choice. Maybe that's the most succinct way to put it. Anyway,
any thoughts about writing like a traditional script?
Yeah, actually, I perpetually have these things sort of floating around. Like I've written some spec scripts and I've written some like sample scripts for like Always Sunny or whatever. I have this one idea and I've written a script for it and I had some people look at it and they gave me some really great ideas to how to redo it. I kind of want to, and somebody mentioned I should do it animated. So all of my introductions and stuff to these videos, I have these animated little segments. These are all made by the same guy named Pablo, who freaking is the best. And so I really want to find a way to use him to make this like animated. Yeah, well, probably just a pilot of something or a short film. And then Dave and I are perpetually talking about how do we make a horror short film. I don't have any concrete ideas. I also have another script for this like sci-fi thing that I want to do that I would never have the budget to actually achieve. It's all this time travel and stuff. But I really want to make a horror short film, and I really want to make this animated crazy thing. And then, yeah, I mean, if anybody else had other ideas, I love punching up people's scripts and stuff like that. But those are kind of the two things that I'm always like, how do we get this made?
Anything else I can add about you before I wrap this up? Because I usually try to keep my podcast roughly coming in around now.
Nothing specific. I think just in general, as we've been doing this more and more, my great hope for the internet is that we can build up a middle class of creative people. And so I really want to find ways for myself, but also for others, if I ever have any money or clout or anything of value, to sort of create more of these people that are making, I don't know, $100,000 a year rather than, Vice was valued at $5.4 billion in 2017. Right. I have no interest in making $5.4 billion, even spread, or, whatever the HBO CEO is making $275 million a year, whatever. That's not interesting to me. I really like the idea of a bunch of people being autonomous and having creative leeway to make the weirdest thing that they can, but also being able to live in the world and not having to work at Taco Bell necessarily.
Right. Yeah. It's just a sustainable career in content creation, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just something that obviously I'm in the middle of and exploring sooner than I expected in some ways, but I'm already really encouraged by it and really excited for what we're building, what we could do. Who knows?
Yeah, I wish you luck with all that, and keep cranking it out. Like I said, I really enjoy it, and I was very appreciative of your work during those tough months. Great talking to you, despite the fact that you're not a real doctor.
I know. I'm sorry to disappoint. People are always shocked.
I thought it was gonna be doctor to doctor. Just some kid, just some musician.
I know. Sorry.
But you got that, and congratulations again on becoming a father for the third time. That's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
I've been, I got the one, and she's my first too. I'm older than most people when they have their first kid. On stage I usually make the joke of like, I know what you're thinking. There's no way this guy's old enough to have a kid, but I do. I have and I have an after. I've been trying to get that other one. We'll see what happens. Once you have one kid, it's like I feel like I just want to. This is so great. Let's do it again. Fatherhood hit me a different way than I expected it to. You ever been to Hawaii?
I have not. My wife has.
My first time going to Hawaii, I think I was somewhere in my 40s, and I've traveled all over the world, but never went to Hawaii. And then I went to Hawaii, and as soon as I got there, I was kicking myself for not going there sooner. You know what I mean? I was like, why was I wasting my time traveling to all these other places when Hawaii is a thing? That was my mentality. And a similar thing happened when I had my first kid. You know, why was I not having kids for so long? Like, this is the best.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that you like your kid. I feel like there are too many parents that see it as a burden, you know, kind of like, and it's like, well, then don't have kids. You know, we live in an age where that's a choice you can make.
Have to. Anyways, congratulations for number 3. And thank you for taking some time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
This has been another episode of On the Road with Dr. Brian. Thanks for watching or listening or however you're consuming this. Thanks. Bye-bye.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Blues, women, and booze. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I'm an asshole, I'm rude. I'm here.